He included some of this stuff.
All right, we are live.
Which is good, because we can look at these different items. Okay, let's start this meeting. This is,
I'm still being given a pen. Nothing in the truck.
today is November 17th, 2022. I got the year right.
This is good.
This is the meeting of the Webster Town Planning Board. Let's do attendance here. You want to start?
Sure. Marlo Herrick. Susan Youngs.
Craig Fournier.
Okay.
Adam Moore.
All right, so we have 5 members here. We have a quorum. I guess the next item on business here is the junkyard ordinance. Is that, I assume, is that why you're here?
For me it is.
I'm just nosy. No, really. No,
Well, welcome.
No, I like the
She's here to
planning
join
board.
us.
Yeah, Paul said that I should show up, so.
Oh,
I
excellent.
said, okay.
I'm, what's your name?
Teresa,
Teresa, and yours?
yeah, I actually grew up here. Yeah.
And
Maxine.
Maxine. Okay, I think we want to talk about a junkyard ordinance, and as far as I can tell, the state statutes almost require us to have a junkyard ordinance. And at the current time, we do not have one. And if you read through these, Russ included some not surrounding towns, but there are three other towns in New Hampshire who have ordinances, and we looked at those ordinances. And they're in this packet here. So I think what we'd like to do is talk about these, talk about what we want to do or what we don't want to do, and just come to some kind of consensus here.
I had a question. One of the things when I read one of the things you said, the local regulation of junkyards and junkyards,
Yes.
by the lawyer Paul Sanderson.
Right.
It says that every town is required
Yes.
to have a licensing of any junkyards.
Yes.
And-
I got that section highlighted.
Yeah, and so I tried to look on the town website to see if we have licensed any junkyards, and I don't, and for example, Copart's gone, but it would have had to have a license.
Well, the answer is there is no license in Webster.
And
No,
we-
no
It's
junkyard.
because it's not a permitted use. So per our zoning ordinance, we're not zoned any form of commercial, so you can't have a junkyard ordinance without going to the ZBA first. So that's kind of one of the reasons I think it hadn't existed in the past, because it's not permissible without a variance.
Because I also just typed into Google,
Yeah.
junkyards in Webster, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And one place comes up, RAR Auto
Yes.
Recycling, which is right next to Copart. It's the place that was a
Right.
little fix-it shop.
Yes.
Yep.
He was licensed. He was licensed. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
No,
No.
not that he's licensed, just that it comes up as an auto,
Yeah,
I was just curious.
I looked into licensing today, and it's licensed, there are like 6 different categories, whether you transport vehicles, you buy and sell, you do parts, whatever. And I called up the lady and I said, is John Little a license? And she couldn't tell me, because she said, their database is organized by date of birth. Anyway, the regulations, if you look at licensing for dealers, licensing for dealers, the requirements are that you have to be open 37.5 hours a week. You have to have a permanent place. You have to have a telephone, you have to have a fax, and you have to have a sign out front saying what you do. And as far as I can tell, I don't think John Little meets any of those requirements. I think he doesn't do much. I mean, he
I don't know.
occasionally sells stuff, I think.
He's been there a long time,
Yeah, and
longer than us.
that's right.
So I suspect, and I would assume that he ran the junkyard where Coparts is forever. He still has part of that land that he ran the junkyard on. I'm pretty sure if you go do your research, it will show you that his junkyard included all his land that he had, and he still has a strip of that from way back.
Yeah.
So I would suspect that he would be grandfathered in is what he's doing.
Well, the one thing is junkyards can't be grandfathered,
Yeah.
Well, so.
unless it exists prior to the state adopting their law.
Hmm?
Unless it exists prior to the state adoption of their law.
And when was that?
I'd have to get you the date.
Cause that
But it was
could
something in
be.
the sixties. And if it's back then yes, it could be. But it would still have to meet the licensing if we adopted a junkyard ordinance.
Even though he's had it all these years, he'd have to get all.
Because it's illegal for the
Yeah.
state, it's illegal.
Does he
I can't go
operate
there.
Well, as far as reading the requirements, he doesn't have, because he doesn't meet, I don't think he's a dealer. He's not a licensed dealer by the motor vehicle.
But you said there's 3 different kinds of licenses you can get, right?
There's like 6 of them.
Oh, okay, so maybe he just didn't fit in that criteria.
Well, you look at him now, certainly, yes, he doesn't fit in a dealer license
Right.
category. But nonetheless, if you look at, well, if you look at these regulations, they're for commercial operations, right? Therefore, and most of these things require a licensing, which gives the town a little control over what they can do with it. But to get the license, they have to meet certain criteria as to terms of whatever we say, in terms of health,
Right, I can see that. Safety,
safety, all those issues.
environmental.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this whole issue?
I looked through these sample ones that Russ sent,
Right.
and, because we don't want to get in trouble with the state, as happened in, where was it, Sanborn? Can't remember where they got in trouble because they didn't get their attorney's fees paid, because they didn't even have a junkyard ordinance, right? When they took
Correct.
that person to court.
That's one of the reasons I'm saying if we wanna go after some of the complaints with the junkyards, we really wanna have an ordinance on the books to make sure we get our attorneys.
So that we don't.
Suffer the same fate.
And I thought the town of Northampton one was the most clearly laid out and sort of comprehensive. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, because it sounds like even if we don't have an ordinance, there are all these rules, like it has to be, if anything more than 500 square feet.
A lot of that stuff is laid out in the RSA. So
Yeah.
the RSA has the distinct requirements of what it has to do, and most of these ordinances pretty much follow.
Follow the state,
RSA.
yeah.
Yeah, in terms of what is a junkyard, the state specifies
And it
that.
also specifies the setbacks from the roads and all that stuff as well,
Right.
once it's been licensed.
Which is where the guy down, that there's at least one clear example that's partly in Webster, where there isn't clearance, adequate clearance from the road.
He's not gonna have adequate burn from anywhere.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Well, you're getting away with it.
Yeah.
Well, they took him to court, and I don't think we want to relitigate that.
No. But we don't want to
Do we
create.
know, how long John Little's been in town?
He was born here. and he's 68 years old. That's how long he's been here. That's a
Put it
guarantee.
in the late
How do you know it?
40s.
How is
Because
it-
I know, because he went to school with my wife. My wife is 60, I'm pretty sure she's 68.
You're being recorded.
And they were in the same class, and he was born right where, about, well, I don't know if it's quite right
Yeah,
there, but
right.
pretty close to it.
Yeah, on that same property. Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard that from Barbara
Yeah.
Corliss.
So before him, his father had the property?
I would assume that
Yeah.
it was all, yeah, I mean, I don't know that far back, but I know John's been there since he was a baby.
It says in here, licensing since 1965, all municipalities in New Hampshire have the responsibility to license junkyards at the local level.
Yeah.
Since anything before 1965, there was no rules and regulations.
So
He
anything
made
before
one, that's all.
1965 is
Yeah,
grandfathered.
I mean, he's been there forever.
Yeah.
And in
But
six,
did he have a junkyard forever?
Yeah.
they've had it
Yeah.
longer than I've been in town.
Yeah,
I'm
his whole
62.
family's been
So
in that business for
he's,
years.
as far as I'm concerned, he's all good.
Well, of course, that isn't really the issue.
Right.
That's somebody
Yeah.
passed, maybe we don't need to worry about him, but we do have to consider what kind of ordinance we would like to create. How reasonable,
Yeah. And then as far as like the machinery part of this stuff, I mean, I got junk that I keep, you know, and
Yeah,
it's
but-
like, I'm not gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, but you can't see it from the.
No,
road.
you can't.
And I don't know, I don't care, you know.
Yeah.
here it is. Machinery junkyards, any yard or field used as a place of storage in which there is displayed to the public view junk machinery or scrap metal that occupies an area of 500 square feet or more. So if it's not visible to the public
Sometimes
view.
it is in the public view for
Well,
time to time.
Paul, any thoughts?
Does it, what does the state regulations cover?
All right.
I mean, if we go by just what the state has for regulations, are we covered enough to?
No, we're not. I mean, they specify what is a junkyard, in other words. And they specify some setbacks,
Setbacks from various roads,
particularly class 5 roads.
and then they require towns to.
They don't specify setbacks from a town in which they do. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues besides what is a junkyard and setbacks. It has to do with pollution and safety and,
Does the state cover, the state covers quite a bit about.
well, there's a whole
Right,
section.
and stuff,
yeah,
right?
the only thing is if they expect towns to have their own
Right,
ordinance as
so
well.
if we,
Just copy theirs.
Remember that?
well, I was gonna say, it kinda goes along with,
Can I make
Like-
a suggestion? Make a call to DES, Department of Environmental Services, and ask for input. I think they might have some guidance for
They
you.
do.
Well, it's the,
Speaking of the waste, would that be a concern?
They actually have a really good spread, like a
They
really
do.
good layout of
Mhm.
what they require of junkyards, and they have a whole picture guide of what works and what doesn't work. It says, don't do this, you should be doing this, and then it shows what they should be setting it up as, like, don't store your truck while draining the oil on open dirt, put it on a concrete slab and then drain it, you know, stuff like that.
is that gonna help us with writing a reg?
I mean, I think those are more DES regulations of junkyards, and I think if there was a junkyard and part of the licensing process would involve DES, because we would definitely want to talk to them about it, especially if it was a pre-existing one. And you could include the regulations in there, but some of that's already covered, say our groundwater ordinance. And, yeah, I think that's really the only, it would have been covered in the wetland ordinance too, but we passed that.
Do you have any thoughts?
I was just kind of thinking along the same ideas, you know, where the state's got certain amount of rules and regulations in place. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I may misunderstand this. Part of what we're responsible as a town is to do something, have something to go by. So if we were to like adopt what the state already has, even though we're supposed to follow it, right? You are supposed to follow it, there's saying that, but we kind of mirror what they've already got in place, then it brings us at least a little bit more up to par to what we got, that we can actually do something about it when we have a complaint. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So you can mirror what the state does, so that as a town, we can say, hey, so-and-so over here, you can't have that. But right now, we're kind of in a situation where we can't even do that, because we have not adopted the rules, or to follow the state rule.
Well, we can, however, if we go to
Court, then the lawyer fees are not
are not
covered,
covered.
you know. And that was always my even thing with the whole wetlands thing, is DES has a certain amount of rules and regulations that you already need to follow.
Well, it's
But
all,
that's what I'm saying.
you have this book, right?
Well,
Section 236, which is.
if I read it, no.
No, I know that,
Yeah, you have memorized it cover to cover.
Oh, God, you don't want me to
but.
memorize
No,
anything.
They do talk about this issue in there, and it'd be worthwhile to see it. Yeah, they define the junkyard, they talk about machinery, 500 square feet. Motor vehicle dealer.
Looks like Pittsfield has almost the same as the New Hampton one.
Yeah, that's why I only gave you two, because
Okay.
basically all three are
Yeah.
copy pasted.
Yeah, and some of them have, I like the, one of them, I can't remember, had a nice preamble to it.
I'll include that one.
Which one?
Was it,
Because I tried to cut down on paper by not printing all of them.
But I think we could,
is
if
it
you.
purpose, or is it
Yeah. it's-
authority? Oh, this says purpose. Yeah, like I said, I found that Northampton one easiest to follow. I mean, it's got, it has lots of legal jargon in it, but that's because it basically quotes directly from the RSA.
Okay.
And that's really what we want to try to do, is we want to pull from state RSAs as much as possible.
Yeah,
I mean, we'd have to change this, but significant
it's-
amount of aquifers that are used for public consumption both by the water system
Yeah.
and individual private wells, obviously here,
I mean,
with the exception of,
yeah, it says municipalities, I'm reading from,
the RSA.
That's from my wonderful code enforcement book that I have
Yes,
downstairs. I made some
code.
copies.
municipalities do not need to adopt a local licensing ordinance in order to require junkyards to be licensed. RSA 236, 111 through 129 requires all junkyards to comply with state licensing statutes and requires all municipalities to enforce these statutes. Furthermore, even if a junkyard has a Department of Transportation license, the operator must obtain an additional local license. RSA 236-11-A, the local licensing obligation applies to any location defined as a junkyard, including those regulated by DOT under RSA 236. So they really do, they want the town to have some kind of licensing. Sounds like.
At least at the state level. Like any other law, at least at the state level, minimum requirements.
Well, the state defines this, but they have a Department of Transportation license, but they also want us to have a local licensing.
Yeah. Even if they have a state license, they're supposed to get a local license.
Yes. I don't know, what do you,
I mean, like I said, my laziness says, why don't we take one of these,
right,
check it for things that would have to be changed for Webster, like that we don't have a public water system, and do that, use that.
but I,
And I know you told us, Russ, once we construct a ordinance for the control of junkyards, what happens then?
So this one's a little different, this one doesn't go to town meeting.
Okay.
So the select board can just adopt this ordinance.
oh, really?
Yes,
Without going to the town?
because if you read the other precept,
I read those, and it
Yeah,
said the
this
select
one
board
goes
can
over the
modify it
process.
at any time.
yeah. This one's a little different.
Does there have to be a hearing?
There would still have to be a public hearing.
But that would be held by us or by
select
the
board.
select board?
And you could probably do a joint public hearing that way, you know, if the
Mhm.
select board had questions, they could ask us on the planning board to help them with the fielding of questions. And I feel like if you do adopt an ordinance, you should probably have more boards involved than just one, because
Yeah.
I think it requires a lot of community input.
There was something in one of the things also about the ZBA that a zoning board
Right,
would
because
also have to,
that was kind of my thought when approaching which boards to discuss it with, is which boards are gonna be the ones who are gonna be dealing with the applications, because the ZBA would have to grant the variance to initially allow the junkyard, then the planning board would have to do the site review, and they would probably wanna get input from the Conservation Commission on each level of the way, and then the select board and the office does the actual licensing after it's gone through that process.
And we would have to create a license application.
Right, and we would probably just steal one from another town and modify it for Webster.
Any other thoughts? Adam?
No, I guess that, well, if they're gonna do it, I mean, I would think that, like Little's down there would be grandfathered in and not have to go through all of the regulation paperwork. You know, leave it, cause it'd be, you know, where he's been here forever.
Yeah, I would.
Now all of a sudden, you're starting to take what was his livelihood all his life.
Right.
No,
That's what he's done all his life.
I tend to agree with you. Just
Yeah.
leave that one alone.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, these are regulations for commercial
Yep,
junkyards. This is not a regulation for junky yards.
well, it is in part, it is in part. Because anything that has, you know, a certain amount, at least according to
Right.
reading it, if they have a certain number of
Unregistered vehicles or
et
trailers.
cetera, it is by definition
Okay.
a junkyard.
All
It's
right.
not a commercial one, but it stops people, like, there is a place in Warner on, Coochtown.
yeah, but he's been there for.
Yes, exactly.
We
But I
built
mean-
that house that he lives in, and that junkyard was here before.
Yeah, but I'm
all of
saying
us.
we,
Again,
but
it's another whole,
I'm not, yeah, but
thing.
we don't want somebody else to start doing the same thing.
right, but I'm just saying that
So-
you should have it from like, maybe figure it all out before this all shakes out. Somebody like Little's that's been doing this all his whole life, just leave him alone. Whether people like it, whether they don't, he's not doing harming anybody. If you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, that's the same with old Harry up there.
Yeah, when, I
He's
don't
got
think
100
anybody's,
cars out in the woods,
I don't think anybody's arguing with you.
yeah.
I think we agree that that long-established places are not, before 65, if they were grandfathered in, they're still grandfathered in. But we don't want new ones.
Yeah,
New one's different story.
yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
and that's what this would take care of.
Would we
Do-
set the time? Would we set
I don't know.
that deadline time of what is grandfathered? Can we do that?
I mean, that's an attorney question.
Okay.
And I don't know if the
Really
RSA has a grandfathered in.
Did you want to say
So
something?
1965 is the date that the state is,
They adopted their law.
okay.
And I think partly is, as your town grows and things are happening, you know, nobody wants to move into a certain area and then all of a sudden, boom, right?
Right.
And what, Addie, you're kind of saying in the big scheme of things, a lot of these places, if you moved in the area next to Harry or
You knew it was
Little,
there.
that's what's there, you know
You
what I
knew
mean?
it was
So,
there,
you
yeah.
know,
Correct.
and there again, we don't wanna be an over-regulated town, but we wanna be able to protect our other, people that live in town, that have lived right where they might have lived for their whole lives, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
yeah. Yeah, no,
bang, you know?
I agree with you
I
on
think
that.
that's the right,
Yeah.
that's what
You
my
know,
mind says.
I fully agree with you on that, but like where I mean, that's all he's ever done, and that was a junkyard, it's just, that's the way it's always been. You know, that's the way it is. Hazelton, Coochtown, same thing. You know, he owns a garage right in the middle of Warner.
I know.
So, and that's not going anywhere, that's gonna be like that forever.
Yep.
I would almost suggest that if we're going to do this and try to exempt certain businesses or whatever you wanna call it in town,
We said it,
we first make up what we're gonna make up.
yeah?
And then we go talk to these individual people to see how they feel. You may be surprised, you may not buck us, you may wanna just fill it out to keep peace in the town.
Yeah.
Then again, he may not.
No,
Johnny.
I'm gonna tell you
It's
right
not
now,
Johnny.
that's not gonna
Yeah.
work there. I can guarantee you that, but I think probably, no doubt you need regulations, but maybe we should start it at a certain point, you know, and then go ahead with it. That's what I think, certain, you know,
Yeah, well,
it-
I think Marlo's idea of passing it by the lawyer, see if we can put in,
Sort
you
of
know,
a start date.
A start date like before
Yeah.
65 or something like that. But what I'm
We had
here,
another question.
My question is this, my biggest concern is the aquifers and the groundwaters for our wells. You know, when I was talking to Bill Tracy, he told me that when he put in his last well, it was 9 feet deep when they hit water. It just, that blew my mind. I mean, New Hampshire's amazing with their water, just like, as a state, it amazes me and everything. And that's my biggest concern, be it Johnny Little or anyone. I'm really concerned about, you know, like cars and stuff like that. And Johnny's a real handy guy, and he knows his way around vehicles and everything. But a leak could be really catastrophic to the
whole
homes and
area as
everything
well.
in the area. And that tremendously impacts, you know, property values and that's my biggest thing, you know, I look at the PFA issue down in Merrimack, and I look at, you know, the most important things we have is our clean water. That's, I mean, here especially, I just think in New Hampshire, it's, you know, we have such wonderful water, it's just something to be protected. And that's my biggest issue, is I'm really concerned about the pollution of the water, the environmental issues.
There's the new regulation though for new junkyards. Once they're licensed though, that it goes on a state radar and DES's radar, and they have periodic inspections, just like they do for gas stations.
Oh,
They do periodic inspections.
okay.
So that's one thing that actually having an ordinance going further will help, because it's going to, that's another safeguard that Webster will be able to, you know, rely on.
But we'll be able to regulate it. For example, in front of my house, there's a lot of vehicles, and we've called about it, and nothing ever gets done. But, you know, I mean, I just can't help being very concerned about their from us, and it's just like about the groundwater, that's my biggest concern, it's just like, you know, regulating it, you can make it an ordinance, but then it has to be regulated, you know, I mean, like, there's gotta be, I know that we're working on that, but, that's the big thing, you can put in all the ordinances you want, but if it's not regulated, what does it mean?
Well, let me throw out another idea. Just let me know if I'm off base or whatever. But can we just deny junkyards? I mean, say the
Can
town
we
doesn't want
just
to.
what?
The town doesn't.
Doesn't
want-
allow?
Doesn't allow.
That's what we already do.
It's already in our.
It's already in our ordinance, because our ordinance, I think it's permissive, where we say, this is what you can do, and then everything else that is not included in the ordinance is not allowed. So junkyards aren't in the ordinance, so they're not allowed. However, once again, there is that lawsuits and the court's rulings that if we do not have a junkyard ordinance on the books, even if we go after them, we won't win any legal fees. That's the big issue here. So we will spend tons of money and not get any of that money back.
That's just like chipping.
Okay, so what I'm thinking, and you can tell me if I'm off base or whatever, but I think we should have like a subcommittee, a couple of us get together and mix and match and come up with something. And then we can talk about it next meeting. If you want to modify it, throw it away, go on, whatever.
Do we want to invite other boards onto the subcommittee? Like maybe members, ask the other boards to submit one member?
I don't know, I'm not,
Just a thought.
I'm inclined to just work on it and then throw it out there and see what sticks.
Because I mean, it would be easy to just sort of copy and paste and then go through and edit.
Yeah. So, what I'm suggesting, maybe, I don't know, is who wants to work on this? I guess, yeah. I'll work on it too.
I do, just because
I'm gonna pass on it.
because I spent time reading this.
Timing wise, I can't do it right now.
All right. But what we'll do is we'll come up with something for next meeting.
Yeah?
And you can
Send
say,
it, send it to us so we can look at it.
Mm-hmm.
all right. So I'll work with you on that.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we need more than two, probably. We need at
yeah,
least
probably.
three.
Well, then how about we can get one
Oh, it's one from
Conservation Commission or something.
Yeah. we
Board,
could.
select board.
Or select board, or staff, you know, it doesn't have to be. You can ask me to do it, you know, I'm fine with it, but up to you.
But
All right,
you
we're
could
gonna
be the
ask-
third, you could be
Can-
the third person.
We're gonna
Yeah.
ask Russ.
I think
Well,
that's a
because
great
he's
idea.
got, yeah, he's got all the
Yeah.
Yes,
other info,
all that,
stuff.
All right.
I
perfect.
mean, and not, if something comes up, I mean, but I figure,
You'll see it anyway.
that's right, yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, right, right.
I mean, I think we're all sort of
On
have
the
a
same
basic
page.
idea of what's
Right.
going on here.
Yeah, you need something, but then you gotta take and kinda, I guess pretty partial to protecting Little's, doing what he's doing, let him carry on. He's not hurting anything down there, you
Right.
know?
And you're gonna find out
And he
the
has a
time
tall
frame.
fence.
What's that?
And he has a tall fence.
Well,
He has
also
a
can
tall
look
fence,
in-
right?
He,
Or he used to.
yeah, I don't,
No.
I think he's
Vehicle
pretty
is
much just,
sitting-
got this garage and what you see
Yeah.
going on there.
But-
Sitting right out
And
there.
he runs the garage as, you know, that's all a legitimate business that he's got happening, so.
Yeah, let's drop that. We're not
Yeah.
we're not gonna go after him.
Okay,
Right.
so we'll set up a date to do that. Do we want to do it before the holidays or start after? the
Well, what I'm
holidays?
thinking is we can do this with a few emails.
At least in part.
Yeah, we can do an email. Because
So-
most of it's not supposed to be an email change, because that's kind of state law. We're supposed to
Oh,
be in
yeah.
person, so that people can attend if they want to be there.
All right, so
So we could get together, draft it.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, each of us take a look at this and outline what we like. And then we'll get together as a group, maybe we'll come to your office
Right.
and put something together.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's huge task. I mean, we have something to work with here.
Yeah, like I said, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that town in Northampton one, and it's a PDF, so you can, so I can't edit it, but I'm,
Well,
I'm,
I have full Adobe
you have the right one,
suite.
mine,
I can
mine,
take it apart and send it back in Word to you if you'd like.
that would be
No,
perfect.
kids get in trouble in school for this.
Well, municipalities, it's a
This is
standard
kidding.
practice.
Fair use. But yeah, if you do that, I'll go through and, I mean, maybe you want it sent to you too, and we can look through and try to change the things that don't
Yeah.
apply. And then we can find out about grandfathering and
Right.
things like that.
Which then
Yeah,
again,
as,
I will,
and as we go through this thing, I think we'll learn a few things, you know?
Yeah,
so the other,
I'm not up to speed on all this stuff, but
what's that?
I'm not, excuse me, I'm not up to speed on every little
No,
nuance in there.
no, we're
that's
not
for sure.
big
But
saying.
as you go through it, you kind of, oh yeah, we need to do this.
so the other part, if we are going to use the lawyer, we'd have to ask the select board. Because we've sort of already overdone our legal
Yep.
line for this year.
Maybe we put together what we want and we send it to the select board, and then the select board can consult.
I'm sure the select board would be willing to work with us on this one.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but, you know.
I just think
I could
we
be
have to bring it
outvoted.
up, we have to bring it up to the select board first because we've overspent the line.
Yeah.
already. And we already got their approval to overspend it the last time.
Mhm.
We're gonna do it again.
But we're definitely, though, you know, as those three are definitely involved in it, it makes sense to me to just try to do the best, just over-regulating's never a good idea, but you gotta have a few in place, that's all. Because
Don't we have something if you had two cars that aren't registered or something like that already?
I think
That's
they've
what the
changed,
RSA is.
Yeah,
I thought they changed that, it doesn't matter if they're registered or not.
I'm not sure, I'd have to look back.
That's right, she's right, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to be,
I think the big reason is if we really want to try to make people behave, and we end up going to court, we don't wanna hold the whole bill. That's really the other big part of this, correct?
That's the
Yeah.
big
If all of a
part.
sudden you get somebody that comes in and just, and there might be a little bit of that going on now, blows out 900 things, and now you've gotta go fight them. We don't want the town to be
Have to put
total
the
liable,
bill.
yeah. And that's really the huge, I mean, we're not trying to make some, I mean, granted,
I
I
mean,
know,
we'll still-
everybody would like it, I get it, everyone wants to protect their property and their value and all that, but,
And their water.
yeah, right, in the water, but at the same token, you know, you wanna be careful that we don't,
Don't wanna be unreasonable.
right.
Yes, I have a friend who lives in Henniker, and two people put in houses upstream from hers. Now suddenly, she has to change all sorts of stuff with her water system because her well has been affected by the construction. So,
Happened to my friend too.
yeah.
Somebody put in a house next door, flooded their basement, destroyed their well. Now they have to dig deeper.
okay. Well, let's put this item to bed and move on here.
Code enforcement?
Code enforcement update.
So that one, I think Paul had something you wanted to speak to on that one?
At the last meeting, I told you that I would make the time to go look at a driveway situation. I did. There is 3 driveways in that piece of property.
Oh, yeah.
We have talked to the gentleman, and he's very adamant he's not going to change anything. So I would suggest that we put this in the hands of the selectmen, who is the enforcement, let them deal with it, send him a letter, tell him to get rid of one of the driveways, or whatever needs to be done.
we wanna make a motion to do that?
Yeah,
And then I will draft a letter for Monday's select board meeting and sign it.
I make a motion that we send the select board the information that we have and let them send out a letter of enforcement to take care of the problem.
Is this Mr. DeBello?
No.
No.
So we do need to give a little.
It's the one on
that's it?
Bridge House.
No, Bridge House Road?
Bridge House Road. Okay, I'll second the motion. All in favor, let's raise your hand.
I'm gonna abstain from that because it's kind of a relative there, so just gonna abstain.
All right.
Is he allowed
So-
to do that? No.
We can abstain.
What's that?
All right, so we have
No.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Did you- yeah.
4 in favor,
Four
1
in favor.
abstention.
I noticed, Paul, that the driveway on White Plains Road is now all paved.
Yes, it's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Done in by, I believe it's been approved by Evan
Which one?
Pearson, Paul? Is it
That
Paul?
one's done. That was
Yeah.
gonna be the next update, was somebody had moved into a house without getting their certificate of occupancy. But I contacted the owner, they worked really well with me, we got their driveway approved. They were done, they just hadn't contacted us to finish everything and started living there. So I called them, took care of it. They came in, paid the bill, everything's all set.
Thank you.
Great.
And he did a lot more asphalt on the driveway than he was
Oh, yeah.
supposed to, yes, so he did.
Looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, well, then you said they were a half inch short or something like that on the asphalt, but I don't think we're gonna hold somebody up on a half an inch.
So,
Wait, that one, they did the whole driveway. There's another one?
Is there, we're talking about White Plains Road?
Pearson Drive.
Yeah, the Pearson driveway, Eric Pearson's.
Yeah.
Oh, the new small house? Not the
I
one
haven't
that's a little
seen it.
further
The
back?
one that's
That's
further
way up
back,
in-
yeah.
The one that's further back has a whole driveway,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
think
Driveway
we
is
have
about
Three Pearsons that are
475 feet
building
long,
at the moment.
Okay.
but he's got a turn on at the top, so he meets all the requirements.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah. It worked well
So-
with us.
Is there any other thing that we need an update on?
Nope, that was it.
Well, I have one. You know, that woman came to us about the school bus park.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah?
Yep.
And I looked at that last week, and there's a fence, posts, and horizontal pieces put in there. We haven't put up
The boards.
the boards
Right.
yet. But it looks like they're intending to put up the fence there.
She's trying then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she did mention to me, she called and said, what were the fence regulations? And I told her, we don't regulate fences, just make sure to keep it on your property.
Yeah.
And I would suggest giving yourself enough space so you can get onto the other side and paint it if you need to, and fix it, but that's about it.
Yeah, now the fence looks like maybe 6 feet tall, and the bus is maybe 7.5, so you're gonna see the top of the bus there over the fence. But, anyway, that's it. Are we done with this item? Next is approval of draft minutes from last month.
I would like to move to approve the minutes from the October meeting.
I second.
Any discussion of the matter?
No?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved, 5-0.
And then if we're done, a motion to adjourn, unless we have new
Well, do we
business.
have any other business? Yes,
Just a question, and I don't know the history, so forgive my ignorance. Gamils, when you're talking about junkyards,
Oh, right.
That one, we already took them to court and we lost.
they lost.
The town lost, all the towns lost.
Because
his
his
property-
property's on 3 towns.
3 or 4 towns, and every town lost. And he won that lawsuit.
What is that?
Can you?
Because he was,
What were the grounds?
it was an agricultural property and everything that was there was needed for agriculture.
And you wonder why his staff's oh, wait.
yeah.
Well, it's
So there's a
so-
little bit more to it than that, and I don't have everything off the top of my head, but I have read a bunch of it in the court. I would say it doesn't fit here.
Yeah,
Something
we're-
like a box like that big.
and I
If you
don't,
ever wanna see it and go through it,
I
I can show
don't,
it to you.
I don't think there's any desire to relitigate that one.
I think we should.
See, and
That's what I think.
I think
don't-
Warner just relived.
Yeah, and I think Webster should too, because
It's,
this
it's
guy
changed.
he's got a Yukon, a white Suburban, whatever, and that got sideswiped, sitting side the road. When you go by there, you'll see that from one end of that to the other, it cleaned the
I didn't
mirror
notice
off and it dented that thing from end to end. And it was sitting right side the road, and it's a hazard for people driving by. And he's just keeps adding and adding and adding, and there's no farm there. Actually, you ought to go right to the health department and start right there. And then they should bring in the agriculture
Well,
commission or something, and, cause those animals, the welfare.
Well, I know the health
of the-
department has been in that area.
And so what
last year.
did they come up with?
You'd have to ask Roy
They're
on
scared?
that one. Roy did something regarding that a while ago.
But the ruling was how long ago? Does anybody know?
Gotta be all of 10 years, I
10
bet.
years.
So,
15?
let's just be devil's advocate a little bit. The ruling at the time, it looks a lot different than it did
Right,
10 years ago.
Right,
And,
absolutely.
and, maybe he won on the grounds of agricultural, but I can't see how
There's
that would
nothing
win
there.
again. And, and there's
That's-
actually causing some, I know Roy came in front of us, the select board, because people were having a problem across the river with certain little furry items. And, one wanted to blame the other, but when we all got talking about it, where's the best feed for those little furry items? But right there, and they love water and they cross and then they're being invasive to other people, across the river. But I'm just saying, I guess wonder why we wouldn't, it's been 10 years and things have changed.
We need to stand
Drastically.
up and fix the problem. That's
Well,
what needs to happen.
what I'd suggest is that we not do this alone, that we contact the other towns.
Right,
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
get, and get on this. I mean,
Who's the
Yeah.
third town?
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
Warner,
That was really kind of a dumb question, sorry.
Yeah.
I knew that. Warner, Webster, yes.
Yep.
yeah, so can you?
How's that
help
work?
us
I
out
will
here?
see what I can do.
I mean,
'Cause
I don't know.
the code enforcement, building inspector for Warner, because he works for here too, so I can ask him what Warner just did. Also, we should take a look back at what the lawsuit was, because there was an agreement between the owner of that property and the towns, and maybe that's a good place to start without,
Because
since
if, yes.
he's violating the terms of that lawsuit, then we could maybe do something there. And that might be a little bit less expensive than going through all of this, but if you have to, you have to.
The health inspector, he should, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that when you drive by there in the summer, you gotta hold your breath from end to end of his property. And you just see all the problems that it's
But I
creating
think,
there.
to defend our health inspector, I think a lot of that part of the property is on Webster. I think that's more
Hopkinton,
on
maybe.
Hopkinton or
Yeah.
Warner.
You still at the state level, DOT trying to get a plow past that.
Yes.
Right.
section. You still have DES with all that waste going into the river.
Right.
Yes.
You have other avenues you can reach out to.
Absolutely, you're right. And it's happening too. It's just a mess. And it's just a accident waiting, somebody's gonna get killed there for it, so. That's the
Well,
bottom line.
let's contact the other towns and see
Yeah,
if there's
good idea.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
everybody here thinks that thing is a hazard, but
I think what makes it really hard is when something like that's happening, it almost, just like I say it in your own garage, somebody leaves stuff here, here, and here, and, oh, the other guy says, well, I don't need to pick that up. So, to me, we're trying to get through some of these, and we're probably gonna make some new rules, hopefully, within reason. And if I was the person that make it, I'd be like, well, what about that guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where does that happen when you do end up in court,
The-
for whatever reason? Well, that guy can do it,
That's right, and there's still.
That's what I worry about.
There's still a few other ones when you drive around town.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely need to address, not just down there, there's
Sort of
another
why
one
we're
up,
doing this,
right?
because I wanna make sure all the ducks are in a row
Yeah.
before we start doing it.
Yeah,
Well, can you, Russ, can you get a copy of the agreement, or the, you know, as you say, a good starting spot? is
Yeah, I can get it.
What happened there?
Right, I
So
can get
that
the
we have
court
a-
summary so you can see.
Yes.
And you could probably talk to, like you just put it out, Hopkinton, and say, what are you guys thinking? Cause I can't imagine they're not starting to move forward on it again. Just because the whole element of what has happened, none of us liked it before, but it's like,
out of
Abby's saying,
hand.
you're gonna, it's gonna,
it's out of hand,
and then, you know, even like animal cruelty.
yeah.
Okay,
Wait,
I think we're all in agreement here.
okay, she,
I just have a funny story. Well, maybe it's not so funny, but given the topic, and I literally went and saw this meeting was taking place when I went to see Michelle Derby down below, and I saw this meeting. I thought, oh my gosh, because my husband's been all over this issue. So I'm driving with my little 5-year-old grandson in the back, and I sing, "Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go," and we're going from Hopkinton to Webster, right? So go over the river, you know. He says, "I know that from Charlie's Brown Thanksgiving." I said, "Well, you know, it's kind of like how you get to grandma's house." He says, "Oh, grandma," he said, "I know when we're going to your house, we just pass all these junkyards and dumps." And I just went, we literally would gone past Camille's, we had gone past, okay, legitimate, the transfer station. It's just like, and then we drive out and then we take a left, and it was just like, oh, you know, out of the mouths of babes, is this what we want our town to be known for? It was just an anecdotal thing, just like, he's just watching what's going on. Who?
Okay, any other business?
I don't think so.
I don't,
I think I'm gonna let you guys alone this month. The
aww,
driveways are doing fairly well. I don't know where DeBello stands, but most of them we're doing okay with.
you said you don't know?
Haven't heard anything. I sent him a letter from both boards saying no more permits will be granted until we get a state permit, and not a word since. But then I think he was,
That's, right now, that's the only one that I can see we got a problem with. We had a problem with one in New London, but it's been taken care of.
I think he did a good job, was the sentiment that we got back when he put it back.
I'd say,
I was going
I'll
to-
leave you guys alone for a month.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 7:22.
All right, I had something I wanted to bring
For me?
Yeah.
up. I got something for Craig, I remember that.
Oh, you didn't switch it over. Yeah. Well, you know,
I told my wife, you guys, one day,
old school watch, with hands on, yeah.
I could put